I want to show you a couple of jigs that you can make for the T-Glide Advanced Rip Fence. Because it's a special design, it's got to have a little bit of an altered design for the jigs. You have to kind of stagger a little bit. This is a tenoning jig for cutting tenons on workpieces. And this is a spline slot cutting jig for mitered boxes and such. Same jig base, just a couple of designs here on the front face. We're going to start building our tenoning jig. Let's cut out a piece of plywood that's 12 inches wide by at least 30 inches long. The length that you'll have some left over, but better to have that than to be short. So 12 inches wide, just cut a blank, and then we're going to cut a series of strips off of it to build our jig. So let's get started. Okay, now because this advanced fence is different than our standard T-Glide, which has two panels on each side, this one has the locks on one side, so you can't run a normal saddle jig over there. We have to build and modify it just a little bit to make it, but we can make it happen. We just have to modify it because of the uniqueness of this fence. So the first thing I want to do is to measure the width from this fence to this side of the tube. So I want to put my combination square up against the side of the tube, and then against my ruler against the aluminum fence, and I want to look, and that's 3.5 inches. So I want to cut a piece 3.5 inches wide. So let's do that. Now with our piece sitting on the tube and against the fence, I need to measure the distance from this side of the fence to this side of the board. So again, just to make sure, I'm going to put my square up against there, and then I want to measure there, and it's just about 4 1/16. So now let's cut a piece 4 1/16 wide. Okay, now I want to screw these two pieces together with one edge flush. So to make sure that they hold that, when I start driving screws in, I'm going to go ahead and clamp these. Okay, so now I've got them clamped flush. Okay, now with the wider board on top, put 3 screws in. I'm using 1¼ inch screws so they won't go through. Otherwise, if you get longer screws, they'll scratch and drag on the tube of your fence. Okay, and there's the first part of our jig. Now I want to put a cleat on this side that holds it against the tube that keeps it from scooting this way. But because the handles for these locks are right here, it can't be very long. So what we need to do is to measure the depth on all 3 of the locks from the top. So if I want to put that one there and just see, make sure they're all the same. This one's a little higher, so I want to go up to it. I want to make sure we clear the one that stands the tallest. That seems to be this one. Okay, now I want to be slightly less than this measurement, about a 32nd of an inch less. This is saying just under 1 3/4 inches. So I will go ahead and make that 1 11/16 inches. That gives me plenty of room to it'll still catch on the tube without hitting these lock levers. So now let's cut a piece that size, 1 11/16 inches. Okay, so lay the assembled parts with the wider face down, and take your new block, place it up against the flush face, and then clamp it in position so it doesn't scoot when we screw it. Okay, that looks perfect. Now let's put some screws. So I'm using a 2-inch screw for this because it can go all the way in without any trouble. Okay, and there's our cleat. Now, let's take that back to the fence, go to the next step. Okay, now we're ready to cut the vertical fence, and I make that about 12 inches tall. Again, it's not a specific, doesn't have to be that number, that just seems to be a good round number. So 12 inches. Now we need to connect the vertical support to the rest of the jig. So place this up on the fence, stand the vertical support against it, and then take a pencil and draw a line along there, and that'll tell us where to drill our screws. So let's go to the workbench. Okay, so now just to help here, I'm going to put the remaining piece of my blank up there, marked on the line on this side, and then I'm going to draw another over here. That scooted on me, but let's keep that. Okay, and then now I want to drill holes to attach about here, here, and here. Now flip it over. Now I'll do the countersink. Okay, now let's stand our fence, our vertical support up against the rest of the jig. Let's clamp it in place. Want to make sure that you're not clamping it in the way that makes that fence tip. Make sure that it's staying flat on the tabletop. And now then, let's secure the screws. All right, now let's check the fit. And that slides real nice, so that's perfect. If it's a little too tight, you can come back and put a spacer, a piece of masking tape, undo these 3 screws, put a piece of masking tape in there and redo it, and that'll give you just a little bit of a spacer if your jig is a little too tight. But this is perfect. Okay, now I want to put a handle on here, something for me to grip to slide this back and forth. Our handle is going to be about 2 inches wide. Again, not an exact science there, but just whatever feels comfortable. I like 2 inches, so set the fence at 2 inches, and we'll rip another piece off of our blank. Now let's mark the handle for the height. We don't need it to be taller than our vertical support, so just hold it up against there, trace that line, and let's make a cut. The handle up against the vertical support. Put it flush with the back edge. Clamp it in place so it doesn't scoot. And let's attach a couple of screws to hold it in place. Okay, so now I've got a nice little handle way to grip this to help pull it. Mostly for pulling it back after when you cut, push it forward and then slide it back. Just gives you a nice little grip. All right, the next thing we need to do, since we're going to be cutting tenons with this, is we need to add a fence on this side. So let's cut that piece next. So now, because I'm going to make the stop on this 1 inch wide, I need to take advantage of the T-Glide Advance's low fence. So let me switch it to low position. Okay, now the stop is going to be mounted on this side. So I want to put a clamp here just to hold it. And I want to check it with my square to make sure that it's perfectly square to the table. Now that we've got it squared to the table, I want to put a screw in at the top. I don't want to put a screw down here because the blade has to pass through that as you're cutting tenons. So we don't want a screw anywhere below this clamp. So let's put one in here and that'll hold it sufficiently. So clear our sawdust, take our clamps off. Let's verify that we're still square. And we are. Perfect. Okay, and now we have a tenoning jig. So let me show you how to use that to cut tenons. Okay, now we're going to cut a tenon on this board. So we're going to just do one side and then we'll do the other. So let's just say we want to go about that high. And the reason we made our board 1 inch is so that I can reach this and clamp the board in place. So now it's secured, it's square to the table, and we can cut our tenon just by sliding it forward and back through the blade. Now to cut the tenon, I've switched out from my plywood blade to a 40-tooth general purpose blade. You could also use a rip blade in this case. So let's set the fence and make our cuts. And now let's flip the board around and make another cut. And there we have a perfectly centered tenon with good clean cheeks for gluing. All I need to do now is just nip this off. The same on the other side, and then if you need any along the edges, do those as well. That's the way to cut tenons with this simple jig on the T-Glide Advance rip fence. Now that we've built a tenoning jig, we can use the same structure to make a miter spline slot cutting jig. The only difference is we don't put this vertical fence here, but instead we put two diagonal pieces at a right angle. Same build, same jig, works the same, only now these vertical pieces, which you can screw on or glue on, now ride down here on flat on the table so that you can cut slots across miter joints. If you're screwing it on, the key is to keep the screws above the blade height. You don't want to accidentally cut into a screw, so keep those at least 3 inches up out of the way. Gluing it also works real easy, then you don't have to worry about it. So let me show you how this works. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is set the blade height. So let's slide the jig up by the blade, bring it up close to it. Now bring your board, whatever box you've made that has your miter joints, you're gonna cut the slots in. Oh, I need to push this back a little bit there. So rest that in the cradle of this. So that's a 90 degrees, so it sets perfect there. So I want to bring this over and I want to find out what height I want the blade, because I don't want to cut through the inside heel of this. You don't want to cut it through on the inside of the box. So you can go up to right up to this point as much as you want. The higher the blade, the larger the spline will be this way. So whatever appeals to you, practice in some, make a scrap box and practice first so you get a feel for it. So let's say that's our cutting depth that we want. So let's lock that. We got the blade set. So now we need to figure out where we want the slot to cut. And you can make it from whatever you want. If you want to make it a 1/2 inch from the fence, let's say you want a 1/2 inch from this vertical support. Well, the easy way to do that is to just measure down here from there over to the blade, and there's a 1/2 inch. So now every time I cut through this, it'll always be the same as long as I'm holding my box against there. So let me first cut through the jig and then we'll do the box. Now let's put our box in the jig and we'll cut the slots in. So just hold it down real tight in there. Pull the box out as you pull the jig back through. Don't pull it back through or it might make a different cut. But there's what our spline slot is going to look like. Okay, and now then we just rotate the box and keep cutting all the way around for more spline slots. Okay, now I've got it all the way around. And what I'm going to do is flip my box around. Okay, now I'm going to spin the box around and I'll cut another one on the other side. And there we have a box with spline slots cut all the way around. And then I just have to cut some stock to fit in there, glue in the little pieces, cut them and trim them flush. And we've got a nice reinforcement for miters. If I wanted to, I could also move the fence and cut another slot centered or however many I want.